But the Women Empowered program had existed for many years, but it had always been a kind of something they did twice a year for like 6 weeks at a time. And, Henry and I were just really trying to push the idea of having a women's class that's offered every week. That's only for women. And that was, ultimately Women Empowered would become a class every week. So that started in 2010. And, I would teach whenever I'd come back. But I always felt like, I was my foot was halfway in, and for obvious reasons. I mean, I had a full-time job and was, it was really hard for me to be able to commit. And we had even kind of scheduled the classes around when I would be in town. But then even that changed. So it was hard for me to fully commit to that program the way I wanted it to. And in the beginning, it felt like the growth had, it was steadily growing, but again, because I felt like I couldn't give it my all, I felt like it wasn't reaching its full potential. So, when finally, 5 years later, there was obviously multiple things that made me decide to end that chapter. One was definitely, like I said, saying, okay, I really want to dedicate myself to this program. And because I'd seen what it had done for so many women, and I had seen kind of the natural progression that was happening with it. And it was also just, I knew that was the direction my life was taking me. It was kind of where my passion really started to show, as opposed to what I was doing every week on the road with WWE. And then
I went through the Women's Empowered Instructor Program, and I remember Jim Pfeiffer and I were studying for that, and met you guys down in Destin at one of the first Gracie immersion camps, and you guys were leading the live portion of that instructor program. And of course, Henry and Hedron, but you and Victoria just did an amazing job of leading that training, facilitating that training. And I can't say enough about how you guys delivered that and how professional you are in that capacity.
Yeah, and I mean, it's been so amazing to watch the growth, even in the last 3 to 4 years. I mean, now our classes are, they're easily 60 plus women every class. And really just seeing, like I said, more than the numbers or anything else is two things. One, the number of women that are kind of transitioning from Women Empowered into training jiu-jitsu. And obviously Women Empowered ultimately is jiu-jitsu. We call it Women Empowered because for a woman who maybe doesn't identify herself with training jiu-jitsu, or they're not even familiar with jiu-jitsu. They're more familiar with the idea of self-defense. It's easier to market and to get a woman to, invest into a women's self-defense class than it is to a jiu-jitsu, class that maybe has men and women there. And so that's why having this women's only program was so important and Women Empowered. But the best part is that what they realize once they're there is like, oh, actually, I really love this jiu-jitsu stuff, and I want to keep growing, and I want to see how this works against a male training partner. Or, and so naturally, once they're done with the Women Empowered program, or even sometimes at the same time, they start training our combatives program, which is our beginners co-ed program. And, I've seen students start from Women Empowered, and now they're, blue belts and beyond. And it's just that's what's really awesome to watch, is just to see the number of women that are really just falling in love with jiu-jitsu through this program.
Absolutely.
But speaking their language, it's really important that we're speaking their language to begin with. Because I just think if a woman off the street who's never been exposed to jiu-jitsu, doesn't have a husband who does it, or any other idea, if you come in and say, hey, look at this cool sweep that you can do and from this position, there's no context for them whatsoever.
Right.
So it just doesn't. But when you speak their language and you say, okay, here are the scenarios that are the most common and most dangerous threats against women, they can easily, all of them have imagined themselves in those situations before. Every single woman has known the potential for these types of situations to occur. And it's not hard. You don't have to sell them on that this is a possibility.
Right.
We all know it's part of our everyday life. So when you speak to that in these specific scenarios, and then you give them answers to those scenarios, it's like it just clicks so quickly, and I think that's why they just take to the program, and it's also, for when you think of anyone else kind of training jiu-jitsu, either for sport or for, or even a man training jiu-jitsu for self-defense, they have a different idea of what victory is. Whereas, like we always say, for Women Empowered, victory is just survival. It's survival. It's breaking away from the fight. It's getting to safety. It's not necessarily you have to finish the fight. Now, obviously, we learned that too, but it's just the whole mindset is a little bit different, and it's one that I identify with more. So I'm always very glad to kind of go back to Women Empowered, even though I obviously have trained beyond,
Right.
And have been sparring every day, or not every day. I wish I could spar every day. But sparring with, training partners with one mindset, it's important for me to always remember my self-defense mindset, which is the Women Empowered mindset, which is I don't have to tap this guy out on the street if I ever get in a situation. I need to do enough to get out and get to safety.
Absolutely.
I don't need to be a hero. I don't need to beat the guy up, whatever it is,
That's so important to remember. And I love teaching Women's Empowered. I love teaching jiu-jitsu, but it's so gratifying, like you said, to take someone who, was scared to even come in the door, and then to see them grow in confidence as they start learning these moves that can save their life, literally save their life. And just to see that smile come on their face and know that, you're seeing growth occur. It's great. Is there a story or two that comes to mind? I'm sure you have many that you could share about either a woman or girl that's been through the program that you've seen the impact in their life, or that's impacted your life by working with them, either one.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, what's interesting, I think every woman has their story. It has their background. And I have my own. But what has been so so gratifying is hearing these, obviously what started as very unfortunate situations, but just seeing how resilient women are, and experiencing that resiliency through this program. And there's a couple, examples. Actually, there's more than that, but one's kind of off the top of my head. But there have been emails sent to me, Henner and I, about this program and what it has done for some women. And these are women who are survivors of either domestic violence or sexual assault. And just these emails, these are the type of emails that leave you just in tears because of how moving they are and how touching they are. There is one story in particular about a woman who was brutally assaulted on the beach, and she came in. We had a contact through her through one of our police officer friends who trains, and he was able to bring her in eventually. And she started training with us, and she had written a letter a while into her training, and she explained how she used to have recurring nightmares about the incident, reliving the incident in her mind. And she had a dream, finally, another nightmare, but this time in her nightmare, she submitted the guy using jiu-jitsu. And she stopped having those nightmares. And that, to me, that just goes to show the power of what this can do for somebody who you are actually, altering the mind's belief and idea of what is possible for them. What is possible for them, and you're almost like replacing a memory or an idea about, what you can do, what somebody can do to you. You're replacing that with something new. And what that does for survivors is just incredible. Yes. But also even what that does for women who maybe did not experience something as brutal of an attack as this woman did, but just saying you start changing your idea of what is possible for you. And that to me is the beauty of jiu-jitsu in general. And that's not just Women Empowered. I'm sure anyone who trains jiu-jitsu has experienced this at some level where you just go, oh my gosh, I had no idea what my body was capable of. And it does so much for your confidence and for your just understanding of what you are capable of as an individual.